All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, George, for inviting me to this interview, and I'm so excited to interview you. Uh, let's get started.
Sounds
So,
great.
first, I want to talk about your book. And so, I read your book in 2 days. It was such a fascinating read. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to read a few pages. I pick it up before bed, and I finished half the book. And I'm so excited the next day because I had to go to bed, It's just 10 o'clock at night. And so I finished the rest of the book. And it is so awesome. And what I love about your book compared to other books is other success books just talk about a few principles of making money. But you talk about everything from your attitude to how to make money to how to choose a career. And it is the best success guide, but I also think it is by far the best parenting guide because it teaches you exactly what to do if you want to raise a successful child. And obviously that's the reason you wrote it, right? That's your story.
Yeah,
So, yes, actually, for those listening who don't know your story and how this book came to be, it would be awesome if you could share it.
sure. So I had done a number of things in my life. I had what most people might regard as a fairly successful career. I ended up practicing law for 30 years, and I was the Attorney General of my state, Nevada, in the United States. And in 2012, I had a heart attack. And I had a daughter, and I have a daughter. She was 16 at the time, and she's now 22. And at the time of the heart attack, I didn't know if I was going to survive, but I did, and I'm perfectly fine now. I've fully recovered. But at the time, I thought, it could happen again. And if it happens again, I've got this 16-year-old daughter, and she's going to have a lot of questions. And if I'm not there to answer them, how's she going to understand get answers to some of her questions? So I decided to start writing down my thoughts in a letter. And then that letter ultimately grew longer and longer and longer. And then as I saw how long it was, I said, geez, this is really a book. And then I thought about young people like you. And I thought, it's not just my daughter that could use something like this. Other young people could benefit from this advice. And so it became a book, and that's how Seize Your Destiny came about.
Awesome. I love that story. That is a great, great story. Obviously, you're still alive today. You're still living happy and well, but you've impacted so many people's lives with this book. And this book is just awesome. And I want to talk a little bit about one of the things you talk about in this book is our future and AI and robotics and how we're not prepared for this big giant change. It's going to be a very disruptive change, but it's going to be, it's going to have many benefits, which will be very crazy. So let's talk a little bit about that. That's really interesting, especially for my generation.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's advancing fast.
Yeah, very fast, much faster than most of us realize. So one of the things that happened when I started writing this book is I began by downloading all of the information that I knew. So I took my own knowledge and I put it down on paper, and not everything obviously, but all the things that I thought I wanted to convey to my daughter. And then as I did that, I realized, I'm really trying to advise her on her future. What are the challenges and the opportunities that she's going to encounter? And so as I did that, I realized, well, I don't know that much about her future. What's going to happen over the next 30 years? And so I started doing research. And that's one of the things that lawyers do. So I was trained as a researcher and as a writer. And so I started to research the future. And I started to learn a lot about it. And what I learned was really extraordinary. It really opened up my eyes. You guys are living in the most, we're all living right now in the most extraordinary period in human history. But the thing is that it's going to get more extraordinary every year. So over the next 5 years, the world is going to change more rapidly and radically than most of us realize. The World Economic Forum says that there will be substantial disruption in employment, for example, over the next 5 years. Over the next 10 years, expect even more change and disruption. This comes with good and bad. So disruption isn't always bad, but it's change. And it's like, if you're driving a car and a curve is coming up ahead, that's change, and it's not necessarily bad, but it's change. You can't drive in a straight line when a curve is ahead. You have to learn to turn, right? So that's some of the things that you guys are going to have to encounter. Life is going to be different tomorrow and the next day than it was for your mother or your father or your family or me. It's going to be very different. There's a guy named Ray Kurzweil, who's the head of artificial intelligence for Google. And he's a brilliant man. And he says that by 2029, artificial intelligence will eclipse human intelligence, which means that today, computers are not as smart or capable as the human being, as the human mind. But 10 years from now, they will be. And what's more extraordinary than that is that computer learning for the past 50 years has doubled every 18 months. So computers have become faster, twice as fast, every 18 months, and this has been going on for the last 50 years. So once the computer becomes smarter than we are, which is 10 years away, it will then double its intelligence within 18 months. And then in another 18 months, double it again. So what he says, and then this doubling rate creates what's called geometric progression. And so instead of arithmetic progression where it's 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, it's 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32. So it doubles at a geometric rate. And so he believes the computing power will be equal to us in 10 years, but in 30 years, he believes that it will be 1 billion times, 1 billion with a B, more powerful than human intelligence.
It broke out.
And saw that I just got a notice on here that said that our internet connection is somewhat unstable. So I'm wondering if that's going to disrupt the connection to the cloud, and maybe I should be recording this on the computer rather than the cloud.
Probably a better idea.
Yeah, but okay, so I hate to screw this up like this because it's been going so brilliantly. Should we just let it go, and then if for some reason we have a problem with the recording, we'll do it again, or what do you think?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. So essentially, what you're looking at is he says that by the 2040s, which is 30 years away, artificial intelligence will be 1 billion times more capable than human intelligence. And what that means, he talks about things like our brains being connected to the cloud. And today, for example, you have this cell phone, right? This is an iPhone 8. And an iPhone 8 has 100,000 times the computing power that NASA had in 1969 when they put a man on the moon. So in 1969, they had a room full of computers that they needed to put a man on the moon. Today, you are carrying around a phone that has 100,000 times as much computing power as NASA had in 1969. Kurzweil says that in 30 years, we'll have nanobots pulsing through our bloodstream, curing our diseases. There's a thing called longevity escape velocity, which says that for every year that you live, you will we'll reach a point where today, every year that we live, we gain less than a year in technology, in lifespan. But in about 10 years, there's going to come a point where you're going to gain more than a year for every year that you live. And there are people that believe, there's a guy named Aubrey de Grey at the SENS Research Foundation who says that the first person who will live to 1,000 is alive today. So if you think about that, I mean, you may, right now think, well, I might live till 100 years old. That would be a good ripe old age for someone like me to live to. You're going to live much longer, Daniel. Chances are that you'll live well past 100 years old. You theoretically could live to 150, 200 years old. And a baby born today could live even longer. So every year that you have, that you stay alive, you're going to be gaining even greater lifespan in the future. Incredible.
So it's like the internet, except 1 billion times more disruptive and more amazing.
Exactly.
I guess the internet was the first step. It was step one, and it was very disruptive. Like, it has put a lot of companies in business and out of business. It has changed the way we learn. It has changed the entire world, but that was only the beginning.
Exactly.
It's really scary. So let's talk, because that'd be very disruptive. So let's talk about how we can prepare for that future. Like, how will that affect jobs, and what jobs can robots not replace? Because obviously, you can't expect a computer to have imagination.
Yeah, exactly. So these are all great questions. And so, what's remarkable when I talk to someone like you, I look at you and I see an articulate, bright young man, who's at the early stages of his life, going into this remarkable future. And you are the future, Daniel. Whether you realize it or not, you and the people like you are going to be the people that we depend upon to lead us through into this new future. Because guys like me are going to get older, and we're going to be less capable to help. And it's going to fall on people like you to lead the world moving forward. So what I believe that we need to be doing, people my age, is we need to be trying to teach you, people your age, as much as we can, to try to make you as powerful as possible, to try to make you as formidable as possible. So we need to download our information into things like books or videos where young people can learn and profit from our experience. So, you talk about what's it going to be like? Well, one thing is jobs are going to change. So what jobs are humans going to perform? They're going to be performing jobs that machines cannot perform as well. So think about certain things that a human being does that a machine can't do. Well, a machine can't hug a baby. It can perhaps cradle one and rock it, but it can't give that emotional connection to another human being, right? So jobs like counseling or jobs like leadership, right? Machines can't lead a bunch of human beings, right? Or sales. It's going to
People would never buy anything from a robot because they wouldn't trust it.
Exactly. So things that involve trust, things that involve empathy, things that involve compassion, these are human traits. Anything that involves uniquely human traits are going to be in high demand. People who can collaborate with other people, people who can get groups of people together and cause them to work together and to live harmoniously. Those are the leaders that are going to be in the greatest demand. Somebody who can just type fast, for example, isn't going to be needed because computers can type faster than anyone.
And I actually, speaking of that, I wrote my latest book, Genius Mode, completely with voice activation. I talked to my phone and wrote down the whole thing for me. It's so fast, and the flow of writing for me is so much easier. Finished the book in 2 weeks. Obviously, I already did the research and everything over the course of 3 years in my whole career, but it was really, really easy and fast to write a book. These days, like back then, when I was 10, when I wrote my first book, that wasn't even possible. Like, you talk to the phone and it couldn't even do anything. Nowadays, you can talk to your phone, you can do like anything with it. So yeah, typing's not gonna be needed. Fast typing, like I don't even know how to fast type. They're not really teaching that in schools anymore because it's not that important.
It's amazing that you're already writing books at your age. Remarkable. But also things like driving, right? Taxi drivers,
Yeah.
truck drivers. Today they're already testing driverless trucks on America's highways. So the number one job for an American male today is truck driver. There aren't going to be any more truck drivers. There are 3 million of them today. These people are going to be out of work. There are 3.9 million Uber drivers. It's a great job for them today, but tomorrow those Ubers are going to be driving themselves. They're not going to need people to drive them. Clerical workers is the number one job for an American woman. That job is going to be replaced. So the main thing that you're going to have to learn to survive and thrive in the future is the ability to adapt, to change to a constantly changing environment. It's like if you were walking to school and the earth were pivoting and moving and you had to kind of balance and move your body to be able to walk, you'd be adapting to a changing slope, to a changing gradient. That's what the world is going to be like. It's going to be, constant evolution, constant change. And you think of the doubling process that I talked about with computers. You'll train for one job, and the next year or 2 years, that job won't be there. You'll have another job, so you'll have to retrain. Now, one of the interesting things is that they're doing so much in the advancement in brain science that they may be able, our learning systems will also change. Today, for you to learn what was into my book, you had to read the book, or you would have had to have gotten it on audio. And right now it's not available on audio. It should be, and it will be. But you have limited ways to learn that information. Tomorrow, you'll be able to go to bed. You'll be able to, you probably won't even need an earphone. And the content of the book will be transferred into your cerebral cortex without you having to read it or listen to it. They talk about, Kurzweil talks about in 30 years, our cerebral cortex being connected to the cloud, where today, if I want to know something, I can find it on Google, but I have to go on my phone or I have to go on my computer and I have to look it up. Tomorrow, in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, your cerebral cortex will actually be connected to the cloud, wirelessly, of course, and you'll just be thinking about something and the answer will come to you because you'll be connected to the cloud. So you won't even have to use the phone or use the computer. All of the information on Google, all of the information on the internet will be available to you seamlessly and wirelessly just by thinking about it. Extraordinary, isn't it?
It is, and it's also very scary because today kids already have not such a long attention span.
Yeah.
And nowadays kids can't even sit down and read books. So I don't know how this is going to affect their attention span, right? Like kids growing up in 30 years are not even going to have patience for like simple things. Like back then, we had to wait for loading. Now everything is so fast. And so when our phones aren't working or the connection is bad and things are loading, it takes a second or two and we just freak out. We explode. So I don't know how that's going to affect that. And that's just one core element. Another thing that I'm kind of worried about is EMFs is a big part. We all know if you put your cell phone next to your head, it leads to cancer, brain cancer. What about if you have, nanobots connected to your body, wirelessly communicating? How is that going to help you live longer? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it definitely will have an effect.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll have nanobots that are curing whatever problems it's creating. But the main thing, I think the main thing is that it is a little scary to think about these things. But the main thing that I think you need to try to develop is this, this understanding that, when you're scared about something, what is that? What is fear? And fear is a thought, right? It's a thought. And it originates in a portion of our brain called the amygdala, which is the emotional portion of our brain, right? So this is where our fear thoughts originate. think of your thoughts for what they are. They're sensory packets, transitory packets of sensory information. They're not real. They're just thoughts. So the fact that you're fearful doesn't mean that you actually have something to be afraid of. It just means that you're laboring under a thought that is making you fearful, right? You have the ability to control those thoughts and to remove that fear. And once you remove that fear, you're no longer fearful. So you're no longer, handicapped by it. So we will learn to train our brains, and we will learn to overcome things like fear, and we will learn to overcome things like impatience. You were very astute in pointing out that right now we're impatient because everything's coming to us so quickly, right? Well, if it's coming to you where you don't even, today you don't have to go to the library to look something up. You look it up on your phone. Well, tomorrow you won't have to go to your phone. You'll just think about it. So that's going to create an expectation of immediacy. You're going to be getting everything that you want immediately. And that's
Amazon?
Yeah, probably.
30-minute shipping?
Daniel, it probably won't even involve shipping. You'll have a 3D printer on your kitchen table. You'll think about it, and it'll be printing it out on your kitchen table. So you're going to develop this level of immediate gratification where you're going to actually have to train yourself and your mind to be more patient, to accept delays when they do occur, because you're going to become so accustomed to having things happen so instantaneously. Yeah.
They're just thinking about if the web is connected to your brain, you can just write a book by thinking about it.
Can you imagine?
It's very...
It may be possible.
Again, also thinking about it, scientists have been able to create magnetic frequencies and literally control someone's body. Like they made some guy's thumb twitch just with magnetic frequencies. And so if you have that in your head, they could also control you. But I don't know. It's weird to think about it,
Daniel, all the things that you're imagining are likely to be possible. I just finished my second book. And my second book is called Millennial Samurai. And Millennial Samurai is more about the future and more than Seize Your Destiny. So Seize Your Destiny was about the foundations of a happy, successful, and meaningful life, right? What are the core foundational principles about having a good life? And it touched upon the future. This new book is all about the future. And it's all about the issues that you and I are talking about now. And it's specifically designed to train you and equip you for that future. So I'm very, very excited about that book. And I'm really excited to have you read it and tell me what your thoughts are.
Very excited to read it. So so that's your new book. That's really, really, really interesting. And I think that's definitely going to benefit our generation. And since we're talking about your book in the future, what about schools? Because schools is a really big one. Kids spend more than half their life at school up to a certain age, and then they go to work and they spend more than half their life at work. So it's like this endless cycle. But what about school? Because it's not really adapting to the time.
No.
So what about? Because there's a lot about it. But what are your thoughts?
I think that school is going to have to change very radically for the technological revolution. School was designed at the turn of the Industrial Revolution, right? So we used to be an agrarian society. We used to be a farming society. And then when the Industrial Revolution came along, we needed to train people to be able to work with machines. So we created the public school system. That's the school system that you're in today, that most children around the world are in today, is a school system that was designed for the Industrial Revolution. Well, we've moved beyond the Industrial Revolution, and we're now in the beginning of the technological revolution. And the technological revolution is very different than the Industrial Revolution. And so our school system also needs to change to adapt to that new technological revolution. So the school system that you go to today, no matter how advanced it might be, you may be going to, from the looks of it, based on how smart you are, you're going to a good school where your mom and dad are doing a great job. Somebody's doing a great job of educating you. And I'm sure your mom is very much a part of that.
Yeah.
I've met her, and I know that she's involved in helping you be as bright and talented as you are. But our school systems are going to have to change. Not all young people have the benefit of parents who can really teach them and advise them. There are 17.5 million children in the United States who are living with one parent. There are 4 million homeless children in the United States who don't have any parents. And I'm sure that's all over the world. So, we need to figure out how some of these kids that have fewer resources or fewer support systems or fewer role models, how they can be educated, because we really need to raise the level of everyone. This is one of the things, another thing, Daniel, that I want to leave you with is that your fate is tied to other people's fate, right? It's not like you can do well and everybody else can do poorly and things are just going to be fine. You have to be concerned not only about you doing well, but you have to be concerned about other people doing well as well. So you want to raise the intellect and the competency of everyone around you, because if you're part of a team, what would you rather be? Part of a team where you're the only smart guy and everybody else is dumb? Or would you rather be part of a team where everybody is smart and, it's a more formidable team? Well, that's what the world is like. If we raise everybody's competency level, we essentially create a stronger universe of people. And that is really the secret to our success, is raising the competency level of all people. And I think people in your generation are going to recognize that, and you're going to put in place new educational systems, new schools, new training methods, things that help other people raise their game so that you're surrounded by more competent people who can help you and who you can lead and who can help lead others to where we need to go.
Yes, and actually on that note of education and how we should be educating everyone, nowadays school, you don't even need to go there because there's this website and you write about it in your book called Khan Academy, and it shows you everything. So yeah, education nowadays can just be a laptop.
Exactly. So that's another thing. Back in my day, we would build these big buildings, and we would, have kids come to these big buildings and these big campuses, and you still see universities around the world that are these huge sprawling campuses. Today we have technology that we can use, that we can harness to educate the world community. You can have people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos that can be online and can be talking to you just like I am. And they can be educating people. And instead of having kids sitting in a classroom being educated by a teacher who, may not know that much or may not have done that much, doesn't it make more sense to have kids sitting and listening to people like Stephen Hawking or Albert Einstein or, people that are, brilliant people? That's how I think the new education system needs to evolve for the technological revolution. We need to harness technology. We need to use technology to educate people, take the best minds and have those best minds teaching everyone.
Yes, I like that. That is a great idea. That is brilliant. It is such a good idea. Don't know how long it's going to take till we get to that phase, but the school system would definitely be very different if we did that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah.
these are the types of things that are absolutely within your reach. When you look at the great progresses that we've made in the internet, for example, take Facebook. Facebook has over 2 billion users, right? It was created by this guy, Mark Zuckerberg, in his dorm room, right? Well, if Mark Zuckerberg can create Facebook in his dorm room, he can create an educational platform like Khan Academy, right? We've already got something like Khan Academy. We just expand on it, right? And we just bring technology into everyone's living room or into everyone's home, and we allow people to sit in front of a monitor and listen and have their minds programmed by these great minds, these great educators. And that may be the future of education, but these are things that people like you, Daniel, are going to be coming up with. You're going to be one of the guys that's sitting in his dorm room somewhere creating a computer software program that changes the way that we educate people or changes the way that we vote in elections. Why are we going into polling places to vote in an election when we could be doing it on our computer, right? It could all be encrypted with blockchain technology. We could all be voting on our computer. We could vote throughout the year. We could learn about the candidates. We could contribute money to their elections. There's so many things that you can do with technology that are different from the way that we're doing them today. And so young people like you are going to have to think about, how can I use what technology exists today to change the way we do things to make them more efficient, more productive, more beneficial to humanity? That's essentially going to be what you're going to be thinking about and doing and contributing to humanity in the years to come. And it's going to be exactly people like you, Daniel. It's going to be young people just like you.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. I see it. I see it in you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I can totally agree with everything you say. And I don't know how long it's going to take till we get to that point, but that is definitely the future. And I know it's not that far. I do actually know, though, that a week ago, my brother was assigned this task. He had to go around the neighborhood and raise money for a foundation so that they could build a school in Africa.
Very cool.
Now, this is where kids need water too, and I'm just thinking to myself, I don't know if a school would be the best idea. You could raise money to get everyone a laptop, you could do it online, you could get them fresh water. There are so many things that are more important than building a school at that moment.
Right. So that's a really good point. And let me give you a little bit of information about that, because you raise a really interesting point. So, how do we prioritize, and how do we decide where to put our energies and where to put our money? There was an interesting interview that I saw at Stanford University where they were interviewing Oprah Winfrey, and they were asking Oprah Winfrey about the failures of her philanthropic investments in Africa. So she had invested a lot of money building a girls' school and building a library in Africa, and they didn't succeed. And they were asking, what did you learn from those failures? And the reason they didn't succeed is because the young people didn't go into the library and they didn't go to the schools. So you can build it, but if they don't go, then what good is it, right? And what she said was, I learned that in order to be successful, you first have to believe in yourself. You have to have a sense of aspiration, a sense of hopefulness. You have to know what these books can do to your life to want to open them or to want to read them. You have to know what a school can do to your life for you to want to attend. And if you don't know these things, if you don't have that belief and that hope in the future, then you'll look at a book in a library like firewood. You'll think, well, I can burn this for food or for heat to cook my food instead of reading it. And so, one of the things that you're going to have to do in order to change the dynamic in countries like Africa is you're going to have to get people to believe in themselves and in their future and what is possible. Somehow you're going to have to show them and teach them and motivate them to believe in the possibilities that exist for them and how learning and education can open those doors. And once you do that, and once they believe that, then you should build the schools, and then you should build the libraries, because now they'll go into them and now they'll use them. But just building them and leaving them there is not going to do it. Oprah already tried that.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's very, very interesting. I know definitely if I had a choice, but the library, that's very, very interesting that they didn't pick the books and that they think of it as work, and that as most kids do, because they're not educated. They have to read books to understand the importance of books, but they don't want to read the books. So you got to educate them first. And that's really interesting. I mean, it's not really a surprise if you think about it, but then at the same time, if you think maybe the parents would get their kids to go to that school, but
well, I'm sure many of the parents try, but some of the parents are themselves not educated. So some of the parents might say, I need my child to go walk 2 miles and bring water back to the house. I don't need my child to go to school every day. I need them to go plant corn, or I need them to, milk the cow. And so some parents, have other concerns that are more, as you pointed out, some people are more concerned about our immediate needs like hunger. How am I going to feed the family? And so you have to take care of those basic needs first. And then somehow you need to educate them to understand the value of learning. And that's not just true in Africa. It's true all over the world. People need to understand the value of learning, and they need to develop a true love of learning. When you said you woke up the second day after you read the book and you woke up excited about finishing the book, that's a love of learning. And that feeling that you had waking up and saying, I want to read more, that's the feeling that somehow we need to get other people to have. Because if they have that love of learning, then they'll read and they'll learn and they'll excel.
Yes, and then that's genius. Well, I don't know if we can see on my shirt right there, but that's what I talk about. I teach people that when you do learn the right things, it can help upgrade your life to have a better, more fulfilled, happier life, so then you can get more out of it and you can enjoy it more. Because when your brain and your body is performing at its optimal and you learn more, your life is better and it's easier and it's more fun and it's more enjoyable. Because we only have one life and we should make the most out of it. So that's why learning is so important. And I totally agree with you that it's so important, and every good kid should be taught to have a love for learning before they learn anything.
Listening to you talk about these things is inspirational to me, because not everybody is going to relate to someone like me, right? Some people are going to relate to someone like you. People that are closer to your own age are going to relate more to you than to me. And so there needs to be young people like you that are out there, that are talking about these things, and that are saying what you're saying, and that have learned what you've learned, and that understand the value of the love of learning. So your future will require constant adaptation, continuous reskilling, and developing a true love of learning. Those are the main things that you're going to have to do to survive and thrive in the 21st century. And I don't want you or anyone else to be afraid of the 21st century. I want you to be excited about it. When would you rather be living? Would you rather be living in a period of time where you're out walking 2 miles to get water? Or would you rather be living in a period of time where you're, flying on spaceships going to different planets? I mean, you are living in the most extraordinary period, and you should be happy about it, and you should be excited about it. And especially someone like you. You have absolutely nothing to fear. You're going to be doing great. And what I'd like to see is I'd like to see more young people becoming as skilled and resilient and curious and empowered as I see you becoming. Exactly. Genius. I love it.
Yes. And actually, I just would like to share with you this little story of, how I kind of got started, because I think that's kind of interesting and,
I would love to hear it.
kind of on topic. So at school, I was actually bullied for most of my life because I was raised on a healthy diet. So my parents were health conscious, and they didn't limit my foods. Like a lot of kids at school would say, so you're not allowed to eat this? I said, no, I'm allowed to. I'm just informed, and I choose not to because I know what it will do to my body. So kids would make fun of me, and they would always at lunch come around and, look at my food and see what they can make fun of today. And I just remember looking around, and everyone was having fun with their friends, eating lunch together, talking. And I was sitting alone because nobody wanted to be next to me. And it just really saddened me. But then in grade 3, my teacher asked me to give a presentation in front of the class about my diet. And that's exactly what I wanted to avoid. But then I realized, what if I help just one kid eat healthier? And come on, how much worse could it get? So I did the talk, and to my surprise, I wasn't bullied anymore. Kids started listening to me. It was like I was a completely different person. Like, they were taking me seriously, and they were applying it. They came home, and then they told their parents about it. And they're like, hey, Daniel, I switched to organic food today. Or I told my parents, and now they're only buying organic. Or I stopped drinking milk completely. And I'm like, wow, it was a big change. And so I found my passion and my love for speaking. And so I went, someone actually saw the recording of my talk I gave at school and invited me to give a little talk downtown Vancouver at Global Rally. So I give the talk, and it goes viral, became the most viewed video on YouTube for that event, which was held in 450 different cities around the globe with over 2 million attendees. So at that point, I was just kind of like, I don't know if I should, speak places. And now I'm like, okay, this is it. I found it. So I kept speaking, and then I discovered, because it kept hitting me, why was I able to outperform my entire school? Because after I gave my talk, I discovered that I was the only kid in the entire school who didn't need his notes. And I discovered this because kids came up to me after my talk, and we had this little speaking competition at my school, and I won for my grade. I was the best grade 3 boy. And I was really wondering, why was it that I was able to outperform my entire school? I had the most complex subject, and I was able to memorize it all. And it just kept coming back to me, and I couldn't figure it out. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do some research. And I discovered that it was because the foods I was eating that were proven to boost my memory, focus, and my IQ. And it's kind of interesting because the reason I was loved at school was the reason I was bullied. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Problem is, smart eating was hard, and it took lots of time. And nobody feels like waking up in the morning and spending like an hour carefully designing their meal and then just creating a disaster recipe, right? And I actually had this one friend whose dad thought, the more stuff you put in the blender, the healthier. So he would start by putting blueberries, spinach, kale, raspberries, strawberries, and then he'd take a left turn and he started putting carrots, tomatoes, avocado, red bell peppers, broccoli. It was, I'm like, oh my God, no wonder he had to bribe his kids with candy to get them to eat it, and they would just start yelling every time he made the smoothie. So I'm like, okay, I gotta change this up. I gotta make smart eating easy and fun. So I spent the next 6 months, and I wrote my first book, and I carefully formulated recipes that have the right foods combined correctly at the right time to give you that same mental oomph I had. So it boosts your brain power so that your brain has energy and it has the right building blocks and fuel. So that was my first book. And I wrote it because I realized how many more people I could help. Because after my talk, people didn't really take anything home. They didn't know what they needed to do. So that's why I created this book. And yeah, so that was kind of like the beginning of my journey. And then, of course, Genius Mode started when my teacher told me I wasn't gifted, except I didn't accept it because by then I kind of already knew I was onto something. But yeah, so that's the story of this book and how I wrote it. So, because you told your story about how you wrote your book, and
I wish you would send me one of those, or tell me how I can get it.
yes, okay.
How do I get it?
Yes, I'm gonna send you one. You can get it at danielbissonnette.com. So right over there.
Okay, hold it. Keep that.
Yeah, but I'm gonna send you one.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, but for everybody else who's watching, because it's important. It's important. That's great. And what's interesting? There are a number of things that we can. So when I hear things like this, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's beautiful. Yeah, that's amazing. So first of all, I want you to know that's great. So I am just now beginning to learn what you learned, I don't know how many years ago, but I'm just now beginning to eat more healthy like you're talking about. And for my whole life, I did not eat that way. And I'm recognizing the difference that it's making in the way that I'm feeling. So I'm very anxious to read your book because I'm very interested in eating more that way. And I need to learn more about it. So this is something that you can teach me. And I'm really happy about that. The other thing that I want you to think about is the lesson that is available from your experience. So the bullying, the fact that people were picking on you for the way that you were eating. Where does bullying come from? Bullying comes essentially from ignorance, right?
Insecurity?
Insecurity and ignorance, right? So these people didn't know what you knew. And that unknown caused them to look at what you were doing with suspicion, and it represented the unknown to them. They were ignorant about it, right? Now, when you cured that ignorance through your speech, when you educated them, when you made them know what you knew, then all of a sudden they looked at you and they looked at what you were doing very differently. So that lesson that you've learned in your life about how you can take a bully and educate them and transform them into someone who can actually become an advocate is something that you can use not only with food, but in all.
Breaking out.
What is telling them? Ed, do what you did in class and teach them. And by making them more informed, you're their quality of life. So, it's inspiring. It's an inspiring story to hear that you went through that and how it evolved and actually how you found, an early purpose in life from doing that. And I think you're going to find more purposes. I think that this is one purpose that is going to be central throughout your life, but I think that there are going to be other things that you're going to discover and other things that you're going to teach people that are going to enrich their lives. This is just the first thing that you're teaching people about how to improve their diet. There's going to be much more for you to teach people as you go on. The more you learn, the more you're going to want to share, and the more you're going to uplift the lives of other people. And that's huge, Daniel.
Yes, and what you said is right on, because a year later when I was in middle school, well, not a year later, but like a few years later when I was in middle school, one of the kids in my class who was bullying me like a lot, the most, she actually came up to me and said, "Daniel, can I buy your book?" So that book that I wrote that I just showed you guys, that book, right? Someone rang the doorbell. Yeah, so that book, she got it, and it was, and she said, "I will cherish this forever." It was a really, really interesting moment for me because I'm like, wow, like, this is from the person I least expected it, but she was the one who got my book. It's just cool. It's really, really cool.
Very cool. Listen, so for whatever reason, we have kind of a bad internet connection, and
Yes.
and it's made a little bit of a mess of our interview, but
Yeah.
but still, it's been an extraordinary interview. I love talking to you, and so what I want to do is I want to do it again with a better internet connection, and I want to also extend an invitation to you. If you find yourself in Las Vegas at any time, I know you've been here before. In fact, we met out here at one of the conferences that was being held by Bill Walsh.
Yes.
But if you happen to find yourself in Las Vegas again, I want to do another interview with you where we get better equipment, we have a sound internet connection, and we're both on the same stage or platform, and we're talking to each other, because I think that this is a really valuable exchange, and I want to do it again. I want to do it again.
Same here. It was awesome. I loved it. A great interview. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Absolutely. So
thank you so much for all the knowledge you gave. It's a very, very practical.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a copy of the manuscript for Millennial Samurai. It hasn't been published yet, but it'll be published in the next 30 days. But even before it's published, I'm going to give you one of the original manuscripts for you to read. So you'll be one of the first people in the country to be reading this book. And I want you to have that, and I want you to have a head start on everyone else.
Thank you. And then I'd love to interview you about it so that we can get the message out.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And please give your best to your mom.
Yes.
Right? She's a wonderful woman, and she's done a remarkable job with you.
Thank you.
You're an exceptional young man.
Thank you.
All right, Daniel. So we'll do this again for sure.
Yes, yes.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.
Good job.